And then if there's any like glitches or anything, we can pause and stop and whatever. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, guys, welcome to the Girl Gang podcast. We have a fantastic episode for you today. And I even turned on my neon sign because I'm just wanting to put all the good energy out there. Today we have Miss Tiffany Hendra. Tiffany, welcome to the Girl Gang podcast.
Amanda, it is such an honor to be here. I have been following. I pop into the Facebook group every once in a while.
Do
And
you really?
yes.
Oh
And
my
I
God.
put my 2 cents in on beauty. You know, girls are asking for beauty, anything. I'm like, I've got to put my 2 cents in. And I just love seeing the community grow and that you have created that resource for really women of all ages to pop in and get a nugget and some guidance. So thank you. Honored to be here.
Oh, there we go. Did you see me freeze?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm going to do this, or I'll just have her cut this. Turn off your camera and turn it back on. Let's see if that works and helps a little bit. Sometimes it might help. Okay, let's just keep rolling. If at any point it does that again, let's just turn off camera, which might suck, but sometimes that just helps with some of these platforms.
Is it on my end?
I don't know. If it froze for you, it froze for me too.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
saying.
And
that's why I'm doing it here, because we're close to my laptop's closest to the router. And
I know, same here. Let me double check.
Not today, devil. Not today.
Mm-mm. Get out of here. I mean, it seems to be going good now.
Yeah, okay. It's good now.
Let's just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not scared off. Okay. Well, so for those people who like maybe live under a rock and don't know about you or, you know, Real Housewives of Dallas, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
That's always such a daunting question, regardless how many times I'm asked. I am a champion for women. I love women. I love to see women soar. And I'll start where I am right now. That is my obsession. All of the long journey that I've been on, and the valleys, the mountaintops, I want to help women live in freedom. And so I've become an empowerment coach. Started off my career as an international model, traveled the world. Mm-hmm. That was my way to get an education. I went to college on an art scholarship. I was going to live in New York.
Really?
And yes, I was a little artist my entire life and jumped through all the hoops. And I wanted to work for a magazine. I loved back in the day, of course, magazines. It's really sad what's happened to that world. Mm-hmm. But I love old school anything, books and magazines. I love to feel them in my hands. And I wanted to live in New York and get out of my small town. I'm from a small town outside of Houston, Texas. That's where I grew up. Nice. And so traveling was my education. Landed in LA and parlayed modeling to TV hosting to acting. Did some acting and quickly figured out that the long nights and sitting in a trailer and I love the storytelling and the creation of movie making, but it wasn't for me, my personality and my path. So long journey. I've got like 12 lives, like cat of 12 lives, and had a very successful TV hosting career in LA. And then finally hit rock bottom and was rebirthed in 2002. So that's really where I believe my life began, in 2002.
Yeah. Oh, well, good. Well, you said finally hit rock bottom, and I just wanted to laugh because I think sometimes we really do have to hit rock bottom and come to the end of ourselves to see a way through.
Yes.
It's so interesting. I'm going to pause really quick. So you said you hit rock bottom in 2002, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's just jump in right there. Anytime someone says something like kind of juicy feeling like that, I'm like, I want to know more. So let's dive in right there.
Let's dive in, right? I am very transparent in my story, and that is part of what I'm doing now and helping women really be transparent, be vulnerable. Brene Brown gave us that permission, right, with all of her
Yep.
research.
Yep.
And it truly is our superpower as women when we can be vulnerable. So I, like many of you listening, I was sexually assaulted, date
Mm.
raped. Let's call it what it is. I was raped at
Mm-hmm.
16 and kept it a secret. Did
Mm.
not tell one soul until I was 31 years old.
Oh
So
my.
when we keep secrets, when we bury trauma, when we do not heal our trauma, this is what happens. So I was through my 20s on a slow, what I call a slow suicide. I was participating in every self-destructive behavior, from being a bad boyaholic, a workaholic,
Mm.
an alcoholic, uh, eating disorders, and using recreational drugs on the weekend,
Mm.
until it got to having one of those little minor surgeries and you're given a big bottle of painkillers,
Oh, yep.
and started the opiate addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2001, we have those beautiful angel messengers. I had a friend of a friend that handed me the book, The Artist's Way. I don't know if it's
Okay.
still really popular. It's one of those books that you go back to at different random, and the book on the shelf calls your
Yep.
name and
Uh-huh. It's always there.
it's always there. Julia Cameron has you, for block artists. So, of course, I mentioned I went to school in an art scholarship, but creativity was a part of my life. I came out of the womb as this little creative being.
Mm-hmm.
Of
Mm-hmm.
course, once the trauma happened and you're disconnected from spirit, I could
Yeah.
barely draw a stick figure or put a cute outfit together. So,
Mm-hmm.
all creativity completely disconnected from my spirit. So, you start numbing and getting yourself really busy with distracting yourself. And often that can be, especially when you go to a place like LA and you're searching and you're seeking to find yourself. And so the path of addiction just overtook me, not to the degree of so many stories that we hear, thank God,
Sure.
but literally going to the Grove to watch a movie with my friends, had to get high, and
Yeah.
afterwards ended up on a bathroom floor and I thought I was dying. So
Mm.
it was a mild OD. I didn't have to be rushed to the hospital, but I had that. If you've seen Eat, Pray, Love, and you've heard
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth's story where she had that bathroom floor moment, I had that bathroom floor moment where I hadn't prayed in forever. I was completely
Mm-hmm.
disconnected from my spirit, God, any kind of higher power. And I said, God, I
Mm-hmm.
am not going out on this dirty West Hollywood bathroom floor. Please don't let me die. Please don't let me die like this. And if
Yeah.
you've been to the old apartments in West Hollywood, they all have like pastel baby colored tile. So that was my rebirth, and
Wow.
got up off that bathroom floor. And I said, all right, Tiff, you have a second chance. You didn't
Yeah.
die. You talked to God. And so someone's listening. So it is time for you to figure out who you are, start to love yourself, forgive your
Mm-hmm.
perpetrators,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and restart life.
Yeah.
Hero's journey.
Wow.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you hear, I mean, just recently we all heard and discovered Demi Lovato's story of her overdose, and she did that you hear about stories like that. And this is something I wanted to kind of get into with you and just see where you are with this, because I feel like from what I know of you, you are a spiritual person. And so what does that mean for you? Because I think it means different things for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's religious or in a like Christian faith or, things like that. So I would love to hear, like, where does that come from for you?
For me, it is I was brought up in the church. My mom
Yeah.
worked at the church, so a lot of us do have church trauma. So being
Mm-hmm.
raised in a Christian atmosphere, a praying mama,
Mm-hmm.
and she was the pastor's secretary, and we had a falling out with the church around the same time that I had that sexual assault happen.
Oh, wow.
But in that Christian church, there were so many beautiful aspects planted, and
Mm-hmm.
my sister and I, and seeds planted, but we were never taught spirituality and having our own relationship with God.
Sure.
And God can mean so many different things to everyone, but we weren't taught that. So when I went on this journey to find myself and reconnect with, of course, it took that bathroom floor moment for me to really wake up. And sometimes God will do that. It's like
He sure
throw
will.
the pebble, flip you upside the head, and then you've got the brick and then the 2x4 to get my
Like, what is
attention
it
because
gonna
I'm a little
take?
hard-headed and very independent. So for me, exactly. So when I got up and going back to the artist way with the book, Julia Cameron has you do morning pages. So you do the morning brain dump. So I actually started that the year before I hit rock bottom, which if you go on a spiritual journey, it is not all of a sudden you are like Buddha and sailing around and just on a hallelujah cloud and everything is perfect and you're thinking positive. Like literally the shizzle hits the fan and you better get ready because everything in your life is going to be disrupted, which is an awesome place to be. Ladies, allow that to happen because you can rebuild it when you reconnect and truly start loving yourself. So going back, I can go on and on and on about that forever.
I love it.
Spirituality, truly being inspired, inspired means to be in spirit.
Yeah.
So for me, daily, it's a practice. It is a daily, because once I hit rock bottom, I had to try all the antidepressants. I was on the cocktail of antidepressants, Klonopin, anti-anxiety. Then I had to do Ambien to go to sleep. Then diagnosed later in life with ADD, tried those medications, did not work for me.
Oh, no.
And then, of course, still continued, never touched a drug again or a recreational drug, but numbed until just a few years ago with alcohol on a daily basis. So spirituality for me means to every day sit with myself. And for me, it is God. And maybe for me, it is more of the Christian God, the biblical version, a heavenly father, because I had such a tumultuous relationship with my father. So I had those moments where I felt like, okay, no matter what my biological father did, my heavenly father loves me and adores me.
Yeah.
So that was pivotal for me. And so every day it's a daily practice of sitting with self. It's my most important meeting. I know you have a lot of entrepreneurs, female founders. It's the most important meeting of the day every single morning with myself. I actually invite I call them my power posse. I invite in God, the Holy Spirit, Jesus, my angels, and my higher consciousness, Queen Tiffany. So
Queen Tiffany. Yeah. I love it. And it's so interesting that you bring up, I had no idea this is where this conversation would go today. It's interesting you bring up a falling out with the church. I have experience with that as well. I grew up in the church, Christian Baptist family, blah, blah. And my husband and I went into ministry. And then we were pushed out of that. Wow. And I think there are a lot of people that is why, or maybe a reason why they are resistant to anything spiritual or faith-based, things like that. And it just showed me so much. And it causes, like, for me at least, like a crisis of faith. And like, who am I? Like, I had been working in churches since I was 14. And then all of a sudden you're in your young 20s and then this happens. And so it is so interesting that is where it took you, but that you then were able to, as an adult, find your own relationship with God. Because I think that's still possible. You know, I think there are people that experience the bad things of church because it's run by people and humans, and we all kind of suck a little at times. Yeah. And it can be disappointing, but you found a way. What was that journey like to like discover that on your own, and why did you want that?
Oh, I love this question so much. And I am so excited that we went down this road as well, because I started I started the youth group band. I played church. I played the piano for
Yes.
my church youth group. My mom was the pastor. My dad was a deacon. My
Yeah.
sister started missionary work. So it was a way of life for us.
Mm-hmm.
So I would not change a thing now at my
Mm-hmm.
age to have the relationship and the foundation and the faith builder moments
Mm-hmm.
constantly in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So the journey, what it looked like was living in LA and being a model, an actress who everything from my looks to how thin I was, how talented I could be, being a chameleon to get anyone, any casting director. It was part of my job as an actress or a model to go in and portray something else, to be able to
Mm-hmm.
sell a product. So
So hard.
the yes, so you are judged, or you get the gig and you make a living off of all of these things, these things to validate you. So when I got married, which was the biggest blessing because it was a year and a half after I hit rock bottom, and I think God knew
Mm-hmm.
that I needed an armor bearer beside me because I
Yeah.
had big things to do in life
Yeah.
and I was going to need some protection. And my husband is such a beautiful, faith-filled man. I always say he came out of the womb with a little baby Bible. My husband loves the Bible, and
That's
he's read
awesome.
it front to back. This year's his 13th year. I finally did it. That was my
Wow.
greatest accomplishment of 2020. As I'd attempted it several times in our marriage, and I just would
Sure.
get distracted. Finally finished the entire
Well
Bible
done.
last year.
Nice.
So for me, though, in LA, it took hitting rock bottom, and then acting class actually was my first form of real therapy,
Oh, wow.
which a lot of actors will tell you that acting class is, a little bit cultish, and you get
Mm-hmm.
in there and you just want to soak it up because you
Yeah.
do start learning so much about yourself. And then I started hanging out with, the acting class cult kids that were into yoga and
Mm-hmm.
and all of that. And that was my path back. And I know Oprah talks about that a lot. And she gets, I think, a lot of flack from the Christian community about that, is that, we all have our path back to finding that relationship with, some people call it source. I don't believe in saying the universe. I think God
Sure.
created the universe, and that is my
Sure.
belief.
Sure.
Um, but whatever that is for each individual. And
Mm-hmm.
so I did. I started going to yoga. I told someone in an interview a few days ago, I stood in line for 4 hours
Oh
to
my
get a
gosh.
hug and blessing from Amma, the patron saint of hugs, this really heavy set, joyful Indian goddess woman that goes around the world, and people stand in line for hours just to get a hug from her because it's
Wow.
so profound. So that was my path back. I started with the books. A lot of books. I started diving into books. I actually, after I hit rock bottom, I came here to Dallas
Mm-hmm.
and sobered up. And a girlfriend gave
Mm-hmm.
me, back then, on a Sony Walkman, the Tony Robbins CDs for
Classic.
Unleash the Power Within. And I'm still a power walker. I'm moving meditation. I learn. I listen to podcasts while I'm walking. And that was the
Mm-hmm.
first male voice, or even, he coined the term life coach. That was the first male voice I had in my ear speaking life to me, and not just positivity, but just speaking life and power. So I just continued. And then, of course, marrying my husband, who was a very strong Christian, he he would leave every morning. He put music on the back burner, had lost his record deals, and would leave every morning at
Mm.
4:30 to go to work construction. So I got my little journals and a Bible and all these books, and it was as if I had my own spiritual, I call it now my spiritual workout. How
Mm-hmm.
spiritually fit are you? And that every morning for probably from 4:30 to probably 2 or 3 hours, I would watch
Mm.
Joyce Meyer, TD Jakes, everyone on TBN. And
Yeah.
I really soaked up Joyce Meyer
Yeah.
because she had so much sexual trauma,
Mm.
and so she just
Mm-hmm.
cuts through. And, I mean,
Yeah.
her ministry is actually called Enjoying Everyday Life. She
Yeah.
keeps it very simple.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the beginning. That was
Wow.
the beginning. And I am so grateful for those moments. My husband and I just shared it recently on Instagram. We had those ramen noodle
Yep.
years,
Yeah. Totally.
and so grateful for that.
And no one probably talks about that. People in your position with the people that are in your life, the experiences and the work that you do and the visibility as a public figure that you have, they don't talk about stuff like that. Not
It's
really. I mean,
uncomfortable.
it's uncomfortable. I think there are some celebrities that are starting to get more honest and vulnerable, which I personally love. But people need to see that. Like, what are we doing if we're not relatable? Like,
Yeah.
what are we doing if we're not showing people I am probably just like you in some way, you know?
Mhm.
Um, so obviously, let's talk a little bit about Real Housewives,
Okay.
right? And get into that a little bit. And how did this really like tie into your story? And then I really want to hear like how did that also now lead you to being an empowerment coach, which I
Mm.
think is so interesting and people are going to want to hear about that. But yeah, let's talk about Dallas first.
Okay. Contrast.
Yeah.
It's all about contrast. So the greatest gift, and that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my career, I'm very honest about it,
Mm.
is the contrast. We moved here on a
Mhm.
whim, leap of
Mhm.
faith. My husband had been praying. He had a studio in Studio City,
Mhm.
thriving studio, and slowly I was becoming more and more miserable. Even though I had
Ugh.
so much spiritual healing,
Sure.
I longed for that sense of community,
Mhm.
and I'd started my YouTube channel, Sanctuary of
Mhm.
Style, as an
Mhm.
outlet to start sharing all the things I was asked on a daily basis, from beauty, style,
Mhm.
workout routine, lifestyle, all things
Mhm.
lifestyle. But I knew in my spirit, I knew that eventually I would get to a place of healing and start talking about my healing journey, my spiritual journey, my trauma. And so it started off with all of the kind of external fluff and fun things. And so my husband, I'll never forget, he called me from the studio one day and we were living in this little bungalow in West Hollywood. And he said, "Babe, I've
Mhm.
been praying about it. And I believe it's time to take you back home to Texas." And I was like,
Mm.
"Hold it. My husband is Australian. He loves California." And I was just, but I knew my husband,
Mhm.
what a leader. He's truly the spiritual leader of our home. And I
Yeah.
said, "Okay, well, if you're sure, I'm not going to call my mom because my parents live in Houston. I'm not going to call my best friends that live here in Dallas," until he said, "No, I'm sure." So I literally the next day got on a plane and
Mhm.
came here without him to find an apartment or a house
Sure.
or something. We moved really quick.
Yeah.
It was scary as heck, and restarted our life. Not even, most people move with something set up,
Sure.
nothing planned, and total leap of faith. And
Yeah.
within 6 months, I was screen testing for this huge show on Bravo. Knew it
Mhm.
was Bravo, so I take responsibility for that. I lived around the corner from Lisa Vanderpump's restaurant. I had done some speaking engagements with some of the gals from OC back in the day.
Uh-huh.
And I did a show for Kelsey and Camille Grammer when they were still
Mhm.
married.
Mhm.
So I knew all about it. I know all about Bravo. But we were a working title, and we were not told it was Real Housewives until after we filmed the whole thing.
Oh my god.
Yes,
Is that common?
girl. I think when it's a first season,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
We were supposedly, and then Potomac was launched at the same time, but we were
Mhm.
the first iteration in like 7 years or something. They had been looking at Texas cities they
Yeah.
wanted a franchise in Texas.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I I went in, I was real, I had enough spiritual healing, I was completely authentic, but thrown in with this, best friend of mine from back in the day,
Mhm.
literally modeled with Leanne at
Mhm.
16 in Houston. We were both from Houston.
Mhm.
And then I come back, this whole new person, healed, off of drugs, this amazing Australian hottie husband, and had start my YouTube channel. I really had this desire to help women, especially young women, because of the trauma that
Mhm.
I experienced as a teenager. So we're going to do this together. And the story, it was not a made up storyline. It was all completely real. And I thought
Yeah.
this could be the answer. I'd been praying and vision boarding, and how
Mhm.
can we take our platforms to the next level. And my sister almost won Survivor in 2008. So I knew
Yeah.
the power of reality TV. And of course, living in Los Angeles and seeing that if you really went in strategic and intentional on a reality show, it could really help your business and your platform. So that's what I did.
Which I
That's what I
think
did.
is wonderful. And some people would be like, well, I see it as strategy. I don't see it as like taking advantage of anything. I
No.
think some people will be like, well, you just did it for blah, blah, blah. It's like yeah, hell yeah, I did it for a reason, Um, and again, I just admire people like you because you are using your platform to do what you feel like you're supposed to do
Mm-hmm.
and help people and
Mm-hmm.
connect with real people. And
Mission
so,
field. Sorry to interrupt you, but it's
no,
it's so important with the women that I do so much empowerment life coaching now
yeah,
because it started out with Rock the Camera, and I moved here and everyone's like, how did you start a YouTube channel? And how did you were a TV host with the best agent in LA? And not a lot of, I don't think anyone was really coaching. Maybe a few news
sure.
anchors would do media coaching, but not personality driven, mission driven TV hosting.
Yes.
And so it started out, I was like, okay, you want to pay me and hire me? That's how my coaching started, but quickly
Right.
learned that before you get on camera and you're visible and you use your
Mhm.
voice, you have to empower yourself and gain a certain level of confidence in the way you
Yes.
look and present yourself and all of that. So it's kind of flip flop now. I need women to get to that certain point
To
before
that
we can get
place.
them
Yes.
visible. So uh, what I tell them is when you shift it, a lot of women, especially in Dallas, if it's the
Mhm.
private schools and the church and what is everybody going to think? And is it all
Yeah.
about me? And so I
Yeah.
said, if you are intentional, I view my social media and my platforms as my mission field.
Yeah.
It's my
Yeah.
mission field. And
For
when you
sure.
do that and you really reframe that,
Yeah.
it's
It's not about you
huge.
anymore.
It's not about you.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing. I mean, I talk about this with my business coaching clients all the time is if you are making your content and everything about you and your journey, which I think we need to tell our story, we need to share, but
Mm-hmm.
if you're making it about you all the time, it's quickly going to not resonate with anyone because they're just going to kind of block it out and be like, well, I don't see how this applies to
Mm-hmm.
me. And I remember when you came out with Rock the Camera and things like that. And I think you're absolutely right. Before people jump into the tactical and practical strategy of things, are you ready in your like inner self and your
Yes.
mindset and as a person to go there?
Yeah.
Like I see this all the time with girls that I work with or women that I work with in coaching and with their business because yes, as a business coach, there's strategies and techniques and all the things, but that is going to fall flat and it's not going to sync
Mm-hmm.
up with you if you are not in a mindset and if you've not worked through some things. So, I mean, I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
therapist, and I'm not a mindset coach, but we do have to work on some of those things.
Yes.
And
First
it's,
things first.
yeah, first things first. And it's just
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, if you start working with a personal trainer, for example, they don't just say, "Hey, let's jump right into these weights and deadlifts and blah blah blah." Let's assess your movement. How like do you have any injuries? Like
Right.
what are your eating habits? How do you sleep? Like you have to start at the basics first. So I want to talk about empowerment coaching. Let's just kind of lay
Yes.
it out on the foundation. Tell people, for those that may be wondering, like, what does that mean? What is it? Tell us how do you define empowerment
Mm-hmm.
coaching?
I define empowerment coaching is, and as a coach, that I'm not here to heal you or empower you. I guide you to empowering yourself and
Mm-hmm.
healing yourself. And so
Yeah.
when I started out on this journey, and I do help women with their brand and the camera
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and spirituality and reconnecting and using their voice. So I'm like, what do I really do? And I kind of made that up. And now I do see other coaches using the term empowerment coach. But empowerment is taking your power back over anything that you have given your power away to, and it has
Yeah.
disempowered you. So I
Yeah.
have women that I'm working with, several women that especially after 2020, a lot of separations and divorces happen, and women realizing that, you know
Mm,
what, I'm in a narcissistic marriage 5 years, 20 years, one of my clients, 27 years. And that was a huge
wow.
gift for her to empower herself to create a strategy to walk away from and restart her life at 53 years old.
Wow.
So it is as simple as that. And I know the word empowerment is used loosely everywhere,
Yes.
but it is truly coaching, like you mentioned, a trainer with all of these areas that a woman gives her power away to. So a big part of it is not speaking up for yourself. So using your voice. So I could actually be called a voice and visibility coach.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Women using their voice, speaking up, not only in a team meeting at work, and they're like, I have a really great idea, but they hold themselves back from raising their hands and
Sure.
saying, I want to share my idea, and really owning it with confidence, or speaking to their husband. And
Mm-hmm.
I call it queenly confidence, is speaking your truth with love. And
Mm-hmm.
however they receive it ain't none of y'all business. If you say it with love and respect, it is not how it lands is none of your business. And it's very
Yeah.
difficult for most women because we're all, reformed people pleasers
Mm-hmm.
and all of that. So it is getting women out of victimhood, and often they don't even realize that they are claiming the role of victimhood, but in every area of their
Yeah.
life, they are playing the martyr and victim.
Mm. So if someone is listening right now and they're like, oh man, I think I have some of these things she's talking about or whatever. I know for my personality is, oh my gosh, I have some shit to work on. Oh
Mhm.
no. What is your advice? Like what is maybe the first step for someone to take that they can tangibly do to start working through some of these things. Obviously, working with someone like you, or I mean, I'm like, go to therapy, like, let's all have a therapist, please.
Mhm.
Let's talk
Mhm.
about it.
Yes, please.
I was just talking to my therapist about this last week about how I hate when people feel upset with me or
Mhm.
there's some kind of tension between me and another person,
Mhm.
and we just really had to unpack like where does it come from. I would say I am also, I think like many women are performing people pleasers. But if someone is feeling like, oh no, this is bringing some bells for me, where
Mhm.
do I start? What would you say?
Step number one is acknowledging it and stop ignoring it.
Mm,
That is the biggest thing. We women keep them, and I'm guilty. Like I mentioned at the
same.
top of the conversation, I would keep myself so busy. And when I moved to Dallas and quickly learned, I was a little depressed. I have to admit,
Mm,
I was a little depressed because I was like, oh, I don't have kids. These women don't speak my language. Where are my people? Where's my tribe? And and of course we all know now that when you completely live in authenticity, your
yeah.
tribe finds you.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. I have beautiful friends here now, but in the beginning I was like, oh, these women don't speak my language. So what I realized was there are a lot of women, and not just Dallas, but when I moved here, women are living for everyone else and the perception,
Mm,
and really have forgotten and got so disconnected with what they really want in life and these behaviors, and of course going deeper to the subconscious programming of why they do these things and why were we a people pleaser to begin with.
mhm.
So making themselves so busy that they don't have time to look at it. And as you mentioned with your therapist, it's like, okay, you know what? I need to take a look at this. So, yes, get into therapy. But even with yourself, when I started sitting, I called it marinating in my own shit. I'm like, let
Yeah.
me marinate. And I did that here in Dallas in
Mhm.
2002 after I hit rock bottom. And I started journaling
Mm,
and actually acknowledging and recognizing these parts of my life that had atrophied, that I had ignored. And that's really the first step. You don't even, not taking it so far to get a therapist right away, but
sure.
today, tonight, You
Mm-hmm.
could grab a journal or just
Yeah.
sit with yourself and get off of Netflix, put down TikTok, close the phone, and actually listen to yourself.
Yeah.
Listen to yourself. Start paying attention to why you get triggered.
Yep.
Triggers are treasures. Someone
Yeah.
pisses you off, it's not even about them. It's like, okay, why?
Yeah.
But acknowledgement, we cannot change anything until we acknowledge it.
I think that's such a good point. I think especially for entrepreneurs, we are always on to the next thing. What's next? Got to do this next thing. What are
Mm-hmm.
how's this marketing plan going? Blah, 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 blah. And we don't stop. We don't stop to sit with ourselves. I think too, it's scary to sit with yourself because, like, for me and my personality, I'm very, if you're familiar with the Enneagram, I'm very Enneagram 7. I love the fun. I love to
Mm-hmm.
laugh. So anything that's like sad or depressing, I'm like, been there, done that.
Mm-hmm.
Not a fan, not going to hang around that.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to, like you said, it's going to atrophy. I like that you use that specific word. It's going to, like, it's going to cause us to kind of like cave in on ourselves at some point, right?
Well,
And
and
so, yeah,
we don't all have to hit rock bottom,
no,
okay?
yeah,
But with the women that I've worked with, I've been doing this several years now, and not a long time. I'm not like some of
sure,
my coaches. They're like, I've been coaching for 25 years. But the autoimmune disorders on my
mm,
roster over the last, I've been really full time 3 years since Real Housewives. And I am shocked
wow,
at the rampant autoimmune disorders. And so I did a lot of research. I have a holistic doctor. We've had many discussions about it, even with my own inflammation with health issues that I've
hmm,
been dealing with, is that the trauma buried,
oh my
not
gosh, yeah,
healing, and truly releasing yourself from all what I call self imposed prisons. It
mm,
really lodges in your body. So,
yeah,
whether it's rock bottom on the bathroom floor like me, or it's a health crisis,
mm,
it could be a bankruptcy, a divorce. Everyone's
hmm,
rock bottom moment could be different, but it doesn't have to be that traumatic.
yeah,
And what I love is taking it a step further with the acknowledgement and saying, okay, you know what? My life is not going the way I wanted it. And
hmm,
a few years ago, my mom had a bunch of boxes in my room at their house. And she was
hmm.
like, are you ever going to take, I mean, you are the age you are. Do you want these boxes of all your journals and different things? When we had moved back to Texas 8 years, it's
Hmm.
almost 8 years now.
Wow,
And I said, well, okay, I'll get them out of your hair. Brought them home and had this beautiful moment unboxing, and found this journal from 2001 along with the Artist's Way book. And at the top of it said, and this is what I do with my clients, what do you want? And sit with yourself and actually allow your spirit and your mind to soar. So at the top of the journal page, it says, I want dot, dot, dot. And the whole
hmm.
page is filled with everything from romance, travel, career, building
Yeah.
a dream house, having a Zen garden with koi fish, and actually visiting Australia and
Mm.
going to Africa. And do you know, I'm married in Aussie and we do mission work in Africa. So
That's
when you
amazing.
get clear on what you
Yeah,
want, acknowledge where you are and where you want to be. And of course, a coach, I help fill the gap.
sure.
Let's close that gap.
Yeah,
But you have to get real with yourself and figure out, what the hell do you really want?
I love it. And I love that you brought up health, which I think could be a whole other rabbit hole.
Yes.
Which maybe we could do a part two or to go
Yeah.
live on Instagram about that.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
and I love that you're bringing in specialists and experts on that piece because that's another thing that, like, it manifests in your body.
Mm-hmm.
There is
Really does.
no, and then we wonder why we're tired or randomly gaining weight or like feeling like we have to drink so much coffee or, you know, whatever. And it's because our body and our brain and our mind and our heart are all so connected. And when we sit and
Well, and
literally release those things.
yes, and you touched on being an entrepreneur, and I actually said that on Instagram the other day because last week was a big birthday for me. I wanted to go back to California. We hadn't been back since January of 2020, and I go back to LA several times a year. So I said, I want to be over the ocean, because I consider Houston was my biological birthplace, but Los
Yeah.
Angeles was my spiritual birthplace. And I said, I want
Yeah.
to be over the ocean. I want to hear the ocean. And so I said on Instagram, as an entrepreneur, especially as a mission driven, you know that you have a calling on your life.
Yep.
You have to create and carve in white space in your calendar.
Yeah.
Vacations are actually vital for your business,
Yep.
and intentional white space in your calendar to get your creativity back up, to nourish the nourishment that women need because we give out so much, the
Yeah.
cognitive energy, the creative energy, the blood, sweat, and tears. It's, a calling is heavy, and it's not something we just clock in 9 to 5. So we have to intentionally know that rest is part of our productivity. And if
Yes.
we truly want to make an impact in the world.
100%. I could not agree more. I am taking a half day today to
Me
go
too.
spend it
Me
with my
too.
sister.
Good.
Which, we bought a house and moved a little bit out to the country, so we live a little farther away from them. But that's what I needed. And we planned it. We've been planning this half day for weeks because I knew I needed a break. And she
Mm-hmm.
was like, I'll take a half day off work too. She works at a church. So super simple to just take a half day on a Friday. And it worked. And so I
Good.
think that is a wonderful place to wrap up. But
Mm-hmm.
Tiffany, it has been so fantastic to talk to you, get to know you a little bit. Tell everybody how they can connect with you if they're interested in empowerment coaching, things like that.
Super easy. Tiffany Hendra on all platforms. I
Mm-hmm.
love Instagram. I
Mm-hmm.
love connecting on social media. And I do believe it is our mission field. And
Yeah.
of course, tiffanyhendra.com. And
Mm-hmm.
Amanda, thank you again for literally the resource. I know how tedious it is to
Yeah.
build a community, and it is really apparent that you have not made it about you. It really is about the community. So that
Thank
inspires
you.
me. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thanks, guys, for listening. Go connect with Tiffany, and we will see you guys next time.